Well, May 25th marks the second anniversary of the killing of George Floyd, and the Canadian Congress on Inclusive Diversity and Workplace Equity is holding its second annual George Floyd Memorial Lecture. It's a very timely event, once again, of course, sadly, just a few weeks after, or just a week or so after that horrific mass killing in Buffalo, New York. I want to bring in Alex Ihama. He's the Executive Director of the Canadian Congress on Inclusive Diversity. Moy Fung also joins us, the Director of Strategic Partnerships. It's wonderful to have you both on the program today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, Angie.
Alex, let me start with you first. As we reflect back on 2 years ago with George Floyd, we're also reflecting on what happened, the horrific incidents in Buffalo. Your thoughts there?
Well, just when we thought we were making some headway, which I still believe we are and we were, we are reminded of the need for critical conversation for such a time as this. 7 days before the second annual anniversary of George Floyd's death, we see what happened in Buffalo. So for those who may be thinking, well, I think we have made some progress in the last 2 years. Yes, but we are reminded that above racism is extremism. And if we don't do enough to take care of racism, what we are going to begin to see is extremism, which I really hope we don't get to that extent.
Indeed. And that was really the center of that conversation. And Moy, let's bring you in on this as well, in terms of when we talk to people in Buffalo and we reflect on what happened with George Floyd, they talked about the action and not just, we're going to provide more supports, et cetera, but real concrete action that is addressing the direct issue.
Yeah.
No, certainly. I was listening to an interview this morning, and it's quite devastating. What I always go back to is, what if it were my family? What if it was my son? What if it was my if we look at Buffalo, many of the people who were killed were over the age of 50, 70, in their 80s even. What if that was your grandmother? I love my grandmother dearly, and I think this is really the time where we truly have to start taking action. We truly have to really start to put plans in place where we can end the systemic racism. One of the events that I go back to is 1955, when Emmett Till was killed. He was a 14-year-old boy who was visiting his family. He lived in Chicago, visiting his family in Mississippi. Went into a store to purchase candy. And he was accused of maybe whistling or touching the owner's wife. And her husband, went after him that night, pulled him out of his bed and beat him badly, I think with his brother-in-law, hung him and shot him in the head. I mean, this has to stop. This is 60-odd something years later, and we're still experiencing it. We need action. We certainly need action.
What does it say to you, Moy, as well? And Alex brought this up as well, when we need to have those bigger conversations, and not just within our own communities, but within white communities, within other communities as well. What does it say as you reflect on that? And again, it mirrors what we're seeing here today. What does it say about the conversation around systemic racism and discrimination?
So what it says is there are still a lot of people that need to engage in the conversation. And I often tell people, this is not about white or black. This is about humanity. And it was Edmund Burke who said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. So my question is, even seeing what happened in Buffalo, and some people still, organizations as well, and even governments as well, not saying anything enough to inspire their people and empower their people to engage in the conversation. Frankly, it is sad, but that's why we're here. That's why we're doing what we're doing, right? In January, we had an event which actually set the theme and the tone for diversity throughout the year, and it was dismantle colonialism, enable cohesiveness, and build cohesiveness. So white supremacy is an outcome of colonialism. It is simply a group of people, not necessarily the whole white race, but a group of people who came together about 300-400 years ago and created the concept of white. I tell people, Google it. White is not about your color of the skin. It's about the socioeconomic construct to say that indigenous are savage and blacks are subservient. So this content was taken out from the educational curriculum. And what you find is white supremacy. Most people have no idea. In fact, a fine woman of almost 50, 60 years old told me the other day, say, Alex, until George Floyd, I never heard about slavery. right? Until they discovered the little kids that were found in the indigenous residential school. Many people didn't even know that happened. But indigenous have been saying this for far too long.
It's sad, and
this is the time. Yes.
It's
yes,
sad
this
and
is
it's
the time
shocking.
for.
I just want to bring Moy in really quickly here before we run out of time. The message now at this year's lecture that's going to be taking place on May 25th, Moy, what's the message there then?
We're calling for National Social Justice Action Day. That's really what we're calling for. I'm not a person that's big on a day. I'm big on lifestyle. And we really want to get to the hearts of people, allowing them to really begin to step outside of themselves and not wait until something happens to them for them to start feeling what someone else might be experiencing. So we're really just calling for action of everyone, not just the Black community, but just the whites. We understand that it's the same people that are gathering. It's the same people that already have a heart for social justice that are gathering. But we're just calling for the hearts of people to really look it's a humanity issue. It's not so much just a white and Black. It's really about humanity. And if you're a parent, if you're a wife, if you're a human being, we invite you to come to become educated about some of the injustices that we face and really just, let's step outside of ourselves and understand what some other people might be faced with.
Indeed. It is great to have you both on the program to talk about this, and we'll continue that conversation. Alex Ima, as well as Moy Fung, thank you both so much for giving me your time, as always.
Thank you for having us.
You're very, very welcome.